To go on, then they say, let's talk about the two concepts for a minute. Why do we need written objectives and guidelines to accomplish our objectives? Why do we need them written? If you think it's impossible to deal with a bureaucracy when something goes wrong, imagine how the worker in the system feels. They must make decisions on important matters with no clear-cut guidelines and the possibility of becoming a scapegoat if the decision is wrong. Is there any wonder they pass the buck and play runaround? When the bureaucratic law is enacted, there will be guidelines of accountability. Then they will know what it is that you expect, and you will be able to find the person or persons who made the wrong decisions, if any. Wouldn't that be difficult? With the second concept, we have accountability and the ability to remove the incompetent. With the system we have now, the bureaucrat making the poor decision simply passes the blame down to the expendables and goes on with business as usual. Many very incompetent people are high in the bureaucratic system simply because there's no accountability, and they are good bureaucrats, or very high, not qualified, just really good bureaucrats. When you consider the love of paperwork inherent in a bureaucratic system, it's surprising this tracking of responsibility isn't enforced. The reason is obvious, isn't it? It is. It's obvious. Why don't they have tracking of who made the decision? It's obvious. They don't want to get cut. Now we have a law in the new system that says that if you're a bureaucracy and you make a decision, it has to be signed by people below you and perhaps people above you. But we have no doubt that whoever's responsible is right in there, and we can find them. And we can get rid of them. Or we can praise them and say, wow, you did good. They go on. It isn't incorporated because the lack of documentation protects the decision maker or the heads of the beast. Wouldn't any animal try to protect its head? Thus, if you would control the beast, put its head in jeopardy. Wrong decisions will bring discharge, and why not? The heads of any bureaucracy set policy, hire, and fire, and generally run things the way they want. For that responsibility, they are paid well. Then, if the objectives are not being met, who should get cut? The poor worker who never has any say, nor his way in anything? We think not, nor do you. And yet, isn't that what's happening now? We say, document decisions and allow a written process for disagreement. Those who are found to have rightly disagreed, now, this is key. Those who in the documentation have said, I don't agree with your decision, blah, 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 something's going to happen, they might find themselves to be qualified to be the new heads after the cut because they were right. All of a sudden, it's not the most skilled bureaucrat, but rather the most qualified to do the job. That's the concept. What a concept. Boy, different. Then they go on. The next three concepts relate to more internal workings of a bureaucracy. Now we're talking about concepts in a bureaucracy now, not the broad concepts, but just something that goes on inside a bureaucracy. These three are designed to make a bureaucracy more efficient, less expensive, and less restricted to the average person. The first concept is a little strange, but as we progress, you will see the need and the solution. There are, give or take, about 5% of the population which create about 90% of the problems for a bureaucracy. The bureaucracy, in turn, spends too much of its time and resources on these 5%. The solution at this point is to restrict all in the hopes of catching those 5% in the catch-all net. What does that mean? That means they're going to restrict all of us, everybody that has to deal with a bureaucracy, they're going to restrict us in action and deed or paperwork or whatever, in the hopes that they will also catch that 5% and be able to deal with them. And what those who give this say is too many of our laws and corporate policies are at this time using that solution. Corporations have to hire overtrained personnel just in case one of those 5% shows up. Understand, we're not saying the 5% are bad. No, understand that we're not saying that all the 5% are bad or must be removed for the sake of the normal. In truth, both the worst and the best of our society reside there. Troublemakers are there for sure. The criminal, the morally degraded, even those who have mental problems are there. You will also find those who have been stepped on by the bureaucracy through no fault of their own are there. You will find those who aren't normal, who don't fit in the square hole. They're there. They may just be a nuisance needing attention, or they may be the very hope of our society, the very hope of mankind. These we must protect. What are they saying? They're saying not only do you have the morally degraded, the criminal, the people who have mental problems, but you also have those people that are the hope of mankind. Now that's a concept that you wouldn't guess would be there, and they're saying you have to have something to take care of that in a bureaucracy so you don't throw those people away as you're dealing with the other people that give you problems. So they're saying these people that are hope of mankind we must protect. They will come into conflict with the norm at any time the norm is about to change or needs change. At this time we want to remove the disruptor. At this time, what we're doing now is we're removing the disruptor, but later we honor them as true benefactors of mankind. Strange what acute vision we have when we're looking back. Stranger still is that we can't look back and see our future, since the spiral of the past, present, and future is here if we could but see it. Another concept that they understand, and I understand. I suppose if you read it all, you'll understand. It's the past, present, and future is all here if you could see it, because it's a spiral and it just keeps happening again and again at a higher level. Concept that would take a little work. So what they have to resolve this 5% people is an exception unit. And they say, so we have this 5%, what do we do with them? We suggest taking them out of the normal system of functioning. What does that mean? If a person can't be taken care of in a manner similar to the 95% who normally enter this part of the bureaucracy, they are told that they must deal with another unit of the system. Now, I don't know how you would see it, but I'll tell you how. I'm pretty sure I can tell you how they'd see it. You're obviously having a problem here, and obviously that you're a special person, so you require this special unit that's going to take care of you. In other words, it's like saying, let me have you talk to the manager. You get to talk to the special unit, and the people that have problems a lot of times will just calm down because somebody's finally going to do something. So this unit will have one task. They must be able to find solutions to the problems caused by the 5% that will satisfy both parties, if at all possible. They don't have to be 20% black or 50% women, or even the mythical group of peers. They simply have to have the ability to solve problems to the satisfaction of both the bureaucracy and the individual. Well, that's a tough run, but that's what we're on. They're a bureaucracy too, more than 12 people doing something. So we have a thing that we need them to do. We need them to satisfy, give a solution that resolves the problem, whatever it is, of the 5%, to the satisfaction of both. It doesn't. They didn't say get them out of their bureaucracy and beat them to a pulp so that they never come back and get rid of them. They said solve the problem. Solve the problem to the satisfaction of both. That's your job. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it right away, but that's what we want from you. And you might get fired if you can't do it. See how as you go through all of these different things that you're dealing with, the concepts that are interwoven in there early on affect something that you're seeing later on, which is why they tell you to read the whole of book 4. These people are, number one, they're told, hey, you're special, we need to take you to a special group. Oh, I like that, I know I'm different, I know I'm better. and I know that's how they think. And then the next thing is that the people that you hired are going to get fired if they don't give solutions that both people are happy with. Try. I'm not saying that they can do it right away, but there is no effort in that area now. There's nobody saying you get paid more if you do it now. And that's what has to happen. That's how you deal with the 5% in a bureaucracy. You have a problem, you define what it is that you want done, and then you make sure that it's done by honoring and paying those who do it and firing those that don't. It sounds like common sense, but we haven't done it yet. So, to accomplish the tasks that the exception unit must have, they get 3 powers. The first power is the ability to access information with subpoena-type authority. They're going to access information by court order if they have to. Just think about that. So if you got a person in the bureaucracy who's pulling a bunch of stuff, and they never get blamed for anything, it's always the other guy. It's always the customer. So all of a sudden you got somebody that can access the information with subpoena-type authority. Things are going to change. They're going to actually know what happened. Okay, now they have the information, as they say. To make a proper decision, they must be able to rapidly access information about the problem. They must be able to cut through the red tape and get to the meat. If that requires investigators, then they shall have the best. This unit will become your best tool to keep any bureaucracy in line and doing what it was intended to do. Why? Because they're going to investigate and find out that it was the bureaucrat. Not always, of course, but they will at some point in time. And what is that? What happens? Then that bureaucrat gets fired. What happens? Your bureaucracy stays a bureaucracy that's helping you, not on its own. You see how they're subtly into the workings of a bureaucracy, and they're suddenly making people accountable. If they don't have them accountable by the paperwork, they got them accountable by the investigator. That's what went wrong here. We did some investigation. We found out that your manager did this, and that's not acceptable. Okay, so things change. The second power that they have to have is the ability to make the final determination in the question. No recourse, no appeal. That may sound like a lot of power given to a few, but examine how the matter is handled now. What price have they paid in procrastination and poor decisions in the conflict? What price have the 95% paid in restriction and interference? There you go again. The concept always here is both. It's both the people, you, the customer, and the bureaucracy, both coming out ahead. So they're not stomping on anybody here. They're the only people. Who's not coming ahead? The bureaucracy gets a solution resolved. The customer gets a solution resolved. The average customer doesn't even get bothered because those people are pulled out of the way. Who loses? Who wins? You look at these things and say, wow, pretty good idea. The third power is a little harder for those outside the operation of law to understand. This power is the ability to make a decision which is truly individual. That means that each decision stands alone and sets no precedent. Each case is decided on its own merit. A decision made in one case one day can be changed the next day in a different case, even though those cases appear to be exactly the same. Each individual or group that comes before this unit will know that their problem will be dealt with as if it was one of a kind. Do you understand what no precedent means? It means nobody's going to say, hey, yesterday you decided this way. What's the deal? These people in this unit can make a decision any way they want. You understand that they'll be investigated and watched, because anytime you give any group power, and we go into that later too, if you give them power, you have to be able to control them and like I said, they'll get to that. So they'll be controlled, but they have a lot of power. As you might guess, coming before this unit puts a person in a fair amount of jeopardy as he requests personal attention. This unit has access to all records. It can be well seen that when a person or group is abusing the system, they'll be seen because they have records that show that. They can soon deal with that problem by rendering the decision quite different from that was hoped for, or the unit may decide against even listening to the complaint. Those that think themselves special in all events will soon learn not to present the concept of this unit. It will soon be apparent that this unit is only for those who truly fall in that 5% group.